When you hear the word play, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, for most people, it's probably, a kid on a swing set or maybe playing fetch with a dog.
Exactly. We tend to think of it as the opposite of serious work, just
Yeah.
frivolous downtime.
Right. But the research we looked at for this deep dive, it completely flips that idea on its head. Play is so essential, so fundamental, that biologists have a universal scientific definition for it.
And it applies across the entire animal kingdom.
The entire kingdom. It's really a profound biological mechanism.
Yeah.
To even qualify as play, an activity has to meet 3 criteria.
Okay.
So first, the behavior. It has to look like a serious action, think hunting or fighting, but it's got to be awkward, exaggerated.
So a practice run that isn't quite right.
Precisely. Second, it can't have any immediate survival purpose. The animal isn't doing it to find food or run from a predator. It's just for its own sake.
Voluntary.
And the third one is the telltale sign, isn't it? It's the big one. It only happens when an animal is totally unstressed. All its basic needs are met. Play is basically a biological signal that says, I'm healthy, I'm safe, and I have energy to spare for practice.
And when you use those criteria, you find it in the most, well, the most surprising place.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about dolphins or chimps. The source material we have is full of examples, from parrots playing hide and seek to a turtle named Pigface.
Wait, hold on. A turtle? Pig face? I always thought of reptiles as just pure instinct. Sun, eat, hide. How can you even tell a turtle is playing?
It's all about observing the context and, the awkwardness of the behavior. Pigface, when he's fed and warm and safe, he actively pushes a basketball around. He messes with plastic hoops.
Really?
Yeah, and if you watch in slow motion, you can clearly see it's voluntary practice. And it gets even more complex. You look at something like monitor lizards, and they're playing repeated games of keep away, even tug of war.
A lizard playing tug of war. That's it's genuinely hard to picture.
But the intentionality is there. The researchers run a control test. They'll coat that same plastic ring in a high-value food reward, like, say, some blood.
Okay.
And instantly, the entire interaction changes. It goes from playful practice to this frantic, non-social, possessive foraging.
Ah. So that switch proves that before, it was a choice.
Exactly. It shows the animal is choosing to play when it doesn't need to survive.
And that distinction, that choice to play, is the perfect starting point for our deep dive today. Our mission is to pull out the key findings that show how this intentional, playful learning directly builds the brain's architecture for long-term success.
We're talking about success in school, resilience to stress, and even advanced achievement in fields like STEM.
We're going to connect what's happening on the playground to what's happening inside the prefrontal cortex.
We've got longitudinal studies, neuroscience, classroom examples. It all points in the same direction.
Okay, let's unpack this. And let's start with that engine you mentioned, the brain's air traffic control system. Researchers call it executive function, or EF.
Right. Executive function is, well, it's the master management system of the brain.
It's not just one thing, is it?
No, not at all. It's a whole suite of higher order abilities that lets us, filter out distractions, prioritize tasks, plan ahead, and switch strategies when something isn't working.
I mean, if you can't manage your attention, you can't really do anything complex. That's why it's so critical for kids entering kindergarten.
Absolutely. And that impact doesn't just fade away after kindergarten. The sources show its development is strongly correlated with success that follows them right through their academic career.
Higher grades, graduating high school.
All of it. And researchers have really zeroed in on 3 core components of EF, a kind of triumvirate that play is almost perfectly designed to train.
So if EF is the air traffic control system, what are the 3 main towers?
Okay, so first you've got working memory. Think of this as your mental desk space. It's the ability to hold and manipulate information in your mind.
So not just remembering something, but actively using it, like doing math in your head.
Exactly. Then you have inhibitory control. This is the tough one, especially for young kids. It's your brain's braking system, the ability to pause, to stop yourself from acting on an impulse.
That's self-regulation in action. I can see that in a classroom. It's the difference between a child shouting out an answer versus, pausing and raising their hand.
Precisely. And the third is cognitive flexibility. This is the mind's ability to pivot, to switch rules, shift your perspective, or try a different angle on a problem when the first one fails.
And if you master those 3 skills through play, the brain it's fundamentally prepared for more complex learning later on.
That's the foundation.
These aren't skills you learn from a worksheet, are they? They're trained through activities. Let's get into the concrete examples from the sources. Freeze dance, for instance. Sounds so simple.
But it's a pure training exercise for inhibitory control. Think about that moment the music stops, that the child is joyful, they're moving, they're hyped up.
And they have to slam on the brakes.
Instantly. They have to use their brain to override that powerful signal to keep moving and just be still. That's a huge amount of self-control being exercised in a split second, all because the game is fun.
And memory card games are another great example, right? For working memory. But I love how the sources showed teachers can tweak them to make them even more powerful.
By upping the complexity. So instead of just matching 2 identical pictures, you introduce a rule shift. You might say, okay, today we're matching by color and by shape.
So you're forcing the child to juggle multiple criteria. That's targeting cognitive flexibility.
It is. But the ultimate test of this, I think, has to be the game called Jumping Feet.
Mm-hmm.
The description in the source material, it sounds like some real mental heavy lifting.
It does. Explain how that works.
It's hard work, which is why it's so good for development. You start with simple rules. You see 2-foot outlines on the floor, you jump with 2 feet. You see 1 outline, you jump with 1 foot.
Okay, that becomes automatic pretty quickly.
Right. And once it's automatic, the teacher introduces the twist. Now you have to do the opposite of what you see.
Oh, wow. So if I see 2 feet, I have to force myself to only use 1.
And if you see 1 foot, you have to jump with both. That is the definition of cognitive friction. You have to first inhibit that automatic response you just learned.
And then apply a totally new opposite rule.
And doing that successfully requires so much self-regulation. And that skill is intrinsically linked not just to, cognitive ability, but to confidence, emotional skills, and just positive classroom behavior.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me, connecting these games to our basic wiring. We said play is enjoyable, fun. But that enjoyment itself is a survival trait, isn't it?
It is. We are neurologically wired to enjoy adaptive behaviors. The fun is what ensures we repeat the activities that guarantee our long-term success.
It's the brain's reward system kicking in.
Exactly. And when children are in that state of deep voluntary play, their brain chemistry is just optimal for learning. We see in animal studies that high amounts of play correlate with low levels of cortisol, the stress hormone.
Less stress means you're more ready to learn.
You're ready to learn, and we can even pinpoint the neurotransmitters driving this. You've got norepinephrine, which is vital for enhancing brain plasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, and it really rouses attention.
And the other big one, dopamine.
And dopamine, which is famously tied to the brain's seeking system. It creates positive feelings, encourages exploration, and it's directly linked to greater cognitive flexibility in those deep focus flow states where real learning happens.
So the fun of the activity is literally activating the systems that maximize learning.
The fun is the mechanism.
So let's look at the flip side. What happens when that playful buffer is gone and kids are exposed to high, sustained stress? The source material had a pretty profound longitudinal study on this.
It was. This study tracked children from preschool all the way into their school-age years. It focused on the physical impact of chronic stress hormones, specifically cortisol, on the developing prefrontal cortex.
The part of the brain responsible for that executive function we were talking about.
Exactly. And they found a direct structural link. Greater total cortisol release in preschool was positively related to a greater thickness in a key area of the PFC.
And that extra thickness, that wasn't a good thing, was it?
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah.
What they discovered was that this greater thickness later mediated the negative link between that high early cortisol and subsequently lower executive function skills when the kids reached primary school.
So in plain English, the adversity and chronic stress literally changed the physical structure of the brain.
And that altered structure then led to weaker EF performance years down the road.
Which just makes the case for early playful intervention so much more urgent. If that playful environment buffers stress and physically strengthens cognitive control, the next big question is how to get it into schools.
Especially bridging that gap between play-based preschool and the more structured environment of primary school.
That transition gap, it's a huge challenge.
It is. A lot of systems have been pushing structured, didactic curricula further and further down into the early grades. They think they're accelerating learning.
But the research shows it's actually counterproductive.
Because play supports everything at once. Literacy, numeracy, social skills, all of it.
This is where the idea of integrated pedagogies comes in as a solution. It's not about choosing between play or structured learning.
It's about blending them. The source is called a triple helix approach. You're weaving together child-directed learning, which is free play, with teacher-guided learning and some targeted teacher-directed instruction.
And that mix gets the best results.
By far. Because you're fostering the full breadth of skills, cognitive, social, emotional, and physical.
The sources lay out 5 characteristics that make these approaches really work. They have to be joyful, meaningful, actively engaging, iterative, so you can try and try again, and socially interactive.
Let's dive into 2 specific methods. First, collaborative learning.
Which is so much more than just putting kids in a group and telling them to work together.
Oh, that doesn't work. The sources highlight 5 non-negotiable strategies to make it effective. You have to really structure the collaboration.
Okay, what are they?
Well, you need positive interdependence, the idea that the group sinks or swims together. You need face-to-face interaction and individual accountability, so no one can just sit back and get a free ride.
Those make sense. But you said there were 2 that often get overlooked.
And they're the crucial ones. First, you have to explicitly teach the interpersonal and small group skills. How to disagree respectfully, how to listen, how to handle conflict.
You have to teach the social rules of the game, otherwise it just falls apart.
It does. And the final one is group processing. The group has to actually reflect on how they work together. What went well? What could we do better? That reflection is where so much of the learning happens.
And the impact is measurable.
Definitely. Studies show that using these kinds of techniques significantly improves things like reading achievement, especially in low-performing schools.
And the second method is guided discovery. I think a lot of us have heard that pure discovery learning, just letting kids figure it out on their own, isn't very effective.
It's not. But guided discovery is different, and it's been found to be superior. It's the sweet spot. The key is that active teacher guidance, the scaffolding, the hints, the pointed questions.
So you're not giving them the answer.
No. You're helping them discover the principle for themselves. And that process of active sense-making, it fosters really deep, durable learning, especially in tough subjects like science and math.
What's so fascinating is how these approaches build holistic skills. It's not just about memorizing a formula.
No, it's about having the cognitive flexibility, the social skills, and the resilience to apply that formula to a new, complex problem that doesn't look like the textbook example. You're building true understanding.
And the effects of these high-quality, playful experiences, they don't just disappear. They last for years. We can see it on a global scale with the PISA results.
The 2015 PISA results were crystal clear. 15-year-olds who had attended 2 to 3 years of preschool performed significantly better in math.
How much better?
By a margin that was equivalent to about a half year of schooling. That's a huge advantage, and it comes from that early exposure to structured, playful learning.
And we have even more specific evidence from a huge U.S.-based longitudinal study, the NICHD study. It tracked kids from infancy all the way to high school.
And it looked specifically at the quality of their early care, from 6 months to about 4.5 years old, and how that linked to STEM success when they were 15.
And what did it find?
It confirmed the importance of 2 specific things: high cognitive stimulation, and critically, high caregiver sensitivity and responsiveness.
So what they were learning and how they were treated emotionally.
Both. And those 2 factors strongly predicted STEM achievement in the middle grades. And then, that mid-childhood achievement served as an indirect pathway that predicted their high school STEM success GPA, advanced courses, the works.
The preparation for high school physics literally starts in the sandbox.
That's a great way to put it.
And here's the finding that, for me, makes this research a real equity accelerator. The sources found that caregiver sensitivity, how emotionally tuned in the caregiver was a stronger predictor of high school STEM performance for children from low-income families.
Stronger than for their higher-income peers. It's a massive finding. It's a game changer.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it suggests that while cognitive stimulation is great for everyone, that emotional scaffolding, that sensitivity and responsiveness, is especially vital for kids facing adversity. It likely helps mitigate the impacts of that stress and cortisol exposure we talked about earlier.
So the high-quality early care is doing double duty. It's providing the cognitive training and the emotional support that builds resilience.
Exactly. It's providing the buffer that allows the brain to develop optimally, even in the face of challenges. This really positions ECE as one of the most powerful tools we have for bolstering the STEM pipeline for lower-income households.
So, at the end of the day, what does this all mean? The foundations for high school calculus, for scientific inquiry, they're not laid down by rote memorization in kindergarten.
No. They're built through collaborative play, through negotiating who gets to be the doctor when you're playing house, through the social friction of a group project, and through that intense self-regulation you need to freeze when the music stops.
The evidence is just overwhelming. Play isn't frivolous. It's a biologically essential mechanism for building the complex cognitive and social systems we need for advanced learning and for life.
It's the engine of development.
The integrated approach we discussed stresses that learning is iterative, the chance to explore, try, fail, and try again. So here's something for you to mull over. Consider how these playful environments foster self-efficacy by encouraging learners to embrace failure. When kids practice revising their thinking based on feedback from a group, they learn that a mistake isn't a catastrophe, it's just information.
A necessary part of the process.
Exactly. And that mindset, rooted in early social play where error is a welcome and normal part of learning, that's perhaps the ultimate long-term skill that prepares you for demanding revision-heavy fields like science and mathematics.